From Washington, D.C., Roland Martin, good morning.
Tom Sybil Guy, good morning. Good morning. Shout out to the folks at XQ America with a great education event in L.A. on Friday. Then I rushed back to Maryland for Saturday for the premiere of Sinners Wanted, a movie by the Jenkins brothers. Of course, the father is Pastor John Jenkins of First Baptist Church, Glenarden. So it was a packed church, Tom, and so I had a good time there. And so
the movie starring Roland Martin.
Yeah, I'm actually in it. Lamont Rucker's in it. Clifton Powell. So it was an excellent movie.
What are you, a TV reporter, a news reporter?
No. I play a preacher.
You play a preacher?
I'm already bootleg. And I said a prayer for your Lakers because do remember, Tom?
It didn't work.
Tom, there's the Knicks are the worst team in the NBA. There was only one team they swept this season.
Here we go.
Yep, that was the Lakers. Sorry about that, little man, because your club will not be in the playoffs. All right, let's get right down to it. 50 people dead in New Zealand as a result of the attack by a white supremacist. And there are folks who might say, they might mourn that and say, well, you know what, it's not America. But the reality is there's a major white domestic terrorist problem in this country that is only intensified with Donald Trump being in the White House. When he was asked about this, he pretty much said, this is only a small group of people. This is just really no big deal. This is no shock he would say that. Joining us right now is Malcolm Nance. He's the author of The Plot to Destroy Democracy, How Putin and his Spies Are Undermining America and Dismantling the West. And Malcolm, people really need to understand that we're operating in white fear right now. We've always had that. But the reality is with America becoming a nation, majority people of color in 2043, you look at what's happening in France and other countries. There's all this fervor when it comes to immigration. This is really white folks globally being afraid of the future, what the demographics look like.
You're absolutely right. And it's not a recent fear. This is certainly in the United States with the white supremacy movement. Well, technically, you could say that its heyday was the U.S. Civil War. But in the period afterwards, and, with the rise of the Ku Klux Klan and then the as it descended into the civil rights movement, the 1950s were actually very, very significant in terms of intellectualizing the fear of immigrants, blacks, browns, and others in the United States and coming into the United States. And you might recall, Roland, there was a movement back in the 1950s called the John Burch Society.
Yep.
And the Burchers were a group of white supremacist, aligned neo-Nazis, Ku Klux Klansmen, and white upper middle class and middle class who believed in white supremacy as, almost a form of corporatism. Now, because the World War II saw the rise of fascism, they didn't want to take on the symbols of fascism. They maintained that America itself was a uniquely white identity. And they were, of course, thoroughly sidelined leading up into the nomination of Barry Goldwater for president in the 1960s. They were sidelined. Only until the period of Donald Trump had groups like the John Burch Society just been ignored.
Right.
Now they're mainstreamed.
And in fact, Congressman Benny Thompson has sent a letter to the FBI and Department of Justice saying that they have failed to brief lawmakers on the fact that more domestic terrorism suspects, white folks, were arrested in the United States over the last 2 years than foreign Islamic extremists.
Absolutely. And last year, not one American was killed in an act of terrorism in the United States by a foreign or foreign-inspired extremist. But there were numerous Americans massacred, most notably the massacre in the synagogue in Pittsburgh, which was carried out by a pro-Trump white nationalist, and the attempted bombing and decapitation of the entire Democratic Party establishment by that amateur bomber out of Florida. This isn't new, but, in the 1990s, we had a huge boom. 1980s and 90s, there was a huge boom of militiamen and white supremacist-backed groups who were going to, prepare themselves for the white, versus black race war. Timothy McVeigh's bombing of the Murrah building in Oklahoma City was precisely that. He expected that when he blew that building up, his book, The Turner Diaries, the one that he loved and loved reading, was supposed to be the clarion call for all whites in the military to take their guns and mass murder the blacks in the military and thus start a race war.
On that very point, a HuffPost investigation has identified 7 U.S. military members who belong to a white nationalist group. ProPublica's also identified the white nationalists. And so we have individuals right now who are serving in the United States military who they've aligned themselves with white nationalists, with neo-Nazi groups, and it is a problem as we speak.
Yeah, and it's old school, too, because the neo-Nazis front other groups, the more traditionalist groups that have gone out of existence, like very little known groups, the Covenant, the Sword, and the Arm of the Lord, which was an all-white Southern group, which was advocating for, civil war in the United States. They said everyone should go into the military to gain those ground skills, and then you can come out and train people. There's a militia right now, an anti-government militia, pro-Trump, but anti-government, that is being trained by ex-special forces soldiers to be prepared for the coming civil war, or, which is now being masked in that if Trump gets denied a second term, right? Well, we all know what it's really for. Another interesting thing is, I'm a gun guy, right? I have guns. I practice, because I used to live over in the Middle East. So these things were a tool of my intelligence and military trade. But, when these people talk about zombie targets and zombie-type ammunition, they're not talking about from The Walking Dead. They're referring to that as when rule of law collapses in a national crisis. The zombies are the black and brown people they expect to come from the cities. And, this is how they think. And now they think that they have a presidential champion that will turn the military and biker gangs to their advantage in a race war. Interestingly enough, all of this really stems from Osama bin Laden. Osama bin Laden, in one of his earliest writings.
Real quick, go ahead, finish.
All right, one of his earliest writings called for a clash of civilizations between Islam and the White West. These people want to carry out bin Laden's wish by having a race war, White West and Islam.
And don't forget, Putin also wants a white world.
Hello.
Yeah.
Man, all this talk of race wars is scary this morning, but it's real.
That's what I do.
Man, race wars around
White
the
folks
world
are freaking out, Tom.
But
They don't like. Look, it ain't our fault they stopped having kids. They're blaming everybody else. That's what's going on. This is real.
Wow.
This is real.
Have a great Monday morning.
Thank you, Malcolm Nance.
Thanks, Malcolm Nance.
All right, y'all.
Wow.